What if I told you that the Philadelphia Eagles just did something so big, so massive, so absolutely seismic, that Eagles fans across the entire country literally lost their minds the moment it dropped? What if I told you that this one move, just one, could change the entire direction of this franchise for the next 6 years? And what if I told you that Eagles fans have been begging, screaming, pleading, and demanding this exact thing for months now? Well, it finally happened. The Eagles finally did it. And if you are an Eagles fan, you are going to want to sit down for this one. Because what just went down at the Jefferson Health Training Complex in Philadelphia is the kind of thing that franchise legends are built around. The kind of thing that gets talked about for decades. The kind of thing that makes you believe, truly, deeply believe, that this team is not done yet. That this franchise has more fire left in the tank. That the best is absolutely, positively, still yet to come. So buckle up. Get comfortable. Because we are going deep today. We are going all the way back to where the story really begins, and we are going to walk through every single twist, every single turn, every single moment of doubt and drama that led to this one earth-shaking, record-breaking, jaw-dropping announcement. Because this story, it is not just about a contract. It is about redemption. It is about trust. It is about a young man who was almost written off before he even put on a professional jersey, who fought through controversy, fought through doubt, fought through injury, and became one of the most dominant defensive players in the entire National Football League. This is the story of Jaylen Carter, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the most important deal this franchise has signed since they built the team that finally brought a Super Bowl title back to the city of brotherly love. Stay with me. This is going to be one heck of a ride. Let's go all the way back. All the way back to Athens, Georgia. A football factory. A place where great players are churned out season after season, year after year. A place where the Georgia Bulldogs have become one of the absolute gold standard programs in all of college football. And right in the middle of that program, right at the absolute center of the most dominant defense in college football, was a young man named Jaylen Carter. Now, if you watched college football during those years, you already know. You already know what Jaylen Carter was. You already know what it looked like when he lined up across from an offensive lineman and just took over. It was something different. Something you do not see very often in college football. Something that made scouts and coaches and general managers lean forward in their chairs and say, "Wait, who is this kid?" Because Jaylen Carter was not just good. He was not just talented. He was the kind of player that changes a defense entirely just by showing up. Just by walking onto the field. Just by lining up in his stance. He was a wrecking ball. A one-man disaster for opposing offensive lines. He played defensive tackle, which, if you are not a huge football person, let me put it this way. The defensive tackle position is one of the toughest, most thankless jobs in all of football. You are literally fighting off 300-pound offensive linemen on every single snap. You are getting double-teamed. You are getting triple-teamed. You are being pushed, pulled, held, grabbed, and attacked from every direction. And still, Jaylen Carter found a way to make plays. Found a way to get into the backfield. Found a way to collapse the pocket, pressure the quarterback, disrupt the run game, and change the entire momentum of a football game. His combination of size and athleticism was something most people had never seen before at the defensive tackle position. He was listed around 314 pounds, but he moved like a linebacker. He moved like someone who had no business being that big and that fast at the same time. He had the power to physically push offensive linemen back into the quarterback. And he had the quickness to shoot gaps and be in the backfield before anyone even realized what had happened. The Georgia Bulldogs won back-to-back national championships in 2021 and 2022. And while they had stars all over the field, Jaylen Carter was a cornerstone of both of those championship defenses. He was the anchor. He was the guy that made everything work. He was the reason other teams could not just run the football at Georgia and expect good results. By the time his college career was done, Jaylen Carter was looking at being a top 5 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Top 5. Maybe even top 3. Some people were talking about him going number 1 overall. That is how good he was. That is how clear the talent was. That is how obvious it was that this kid was going to be a special player in the NFL. And then everything almost fell apart. Here is where the story takes a dark turn. And I want to be very clear, this is a painful chapter. This is not something to be glossed over or taken lightly. In January of 2023, just weeks before the NFL draft, there was a tragedy in Athens, Georgia. A single car accident claimed the lives of two people, Devin Willock, a 20-year-old Georgia football player, and Chandler LaCroix, a 24-year-old member of the football staff. 2 lives, gone in an instant. And Jaylen Carter was connected to the events of that night. He was not driving the vehicle that crashed. But he had been racing, street racing, and the charges that followed were for reckless driving and racing. He entered a deal with prosecutors, pled no contest, and faced the legal consequences. Now, I want to pause here for a moment. Because what happened that night was devastating. For the families of Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix, it was an unimaginable tragedy. And that loss is real. That grief is real. No contract, no football story, no draft position changes that. But the question for Jaylen Carter, the question that hung over his entire future, was, what do you do with this? How do you carry this forward? How do you take the weight of that night and everything that came with it, and still find a way to become the person you were supposed to be? Because the NFL was watching. Teams were watching. Draft boards were being reshuffled. Players who had been projected to be top 5 picks had fallen all the way out of the first round because of character concerns. And suddenly, the kid who everyone expected to go in the top 3 was in serious danger of sliding, potentially all the way out of the top 10. There were meetings. There were character evaluations. There were teams calling Georgia coaches, calling teammates, calling anyone who knew Jaylen Carter, trying to figure out the truth. Was this a kid who could handle the pressure of the NFL? Was this a kid who could be trusted? Was this a kid who was going to represent your organization the right way? One team believed the answer was yes. One team looked past the noise, looked at the football tape, looked at the conversations they had with Carter, and decided, we want this kid. We are going to bet on him. That team was the Philadelphia Eagles. Draft night 2023. The first round. 9 picks in. The Philadelphia Eagles were on the clock. And when Commissioner Roger Goodell walked to the podium and opened his mouth, Philadelphia held its breath. With the 9th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jaylen Carter, defensive tackle, Georgia. The room erupted. Eagles fans watching at home jumped off their couches. The pick made every sports news outlet in America. The Eagles had just taken one of the most physically gifted defensive linemen anyone had ever seen. A player with first-round talent who had slid all the way to 9 because of concerns that other teams had. And here is the thing about the Philadelphia Eagles. This franchise has always prided itself on identifying talent, on doing the homework, on looking beyond the surface and finding the players who are going to be great, even when other teams have doubts. Howie Roseman, the Eagles' general manager, has built his reputation on exactly this kind of move. The ability to find value. The ability to look at a situation that scares everyone else and say, we have done our research. We know what we are getting. We are going to trust this. And when Jaylen Carter showed up in Philadelphia, he made Howie Roseman look like an absolute genius. That first year in Philadelphia was an eye-opener. Training Camp 2023. The Eagles were already one of the best teams in the NFL. They had come off a Super Bowl appearance the year before. They were loaded with talent. They had Jalen Hurts at quarterback, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith at wide receiver, Saquon Barkley. Wait, that comes later. But the point is, the Eagles were already good. And then you added this enormous, athletic, disruptive force at defensive tackle. And everything on that side of the ball got better. Carter adjusted to the speed of the NFL faster than almost anyone expected. The guy could not be stopped with one blocker. And even with 2 blockers, he was still causing problems. He was still getting penetration. He was still collapsing the pocket, making quarterbacks uncomfortable, and disrupting the entire offensive rhythm of every team that tried to attack the Eagles in the middle. He finished his rookie year as the runner-up for Defensive Rookie of the Year. The runner-up. As a first-year player. In the National Football League. On a defense run by one of the best defensive minds in football, Vic Fangio. People in Philadelphia started to feel it. That quiet electricity that builds when you realize you might have something very, very special on your roster. Carter was not just good. He was becoming a force. Something opposing offensive coordinators had to game plan around. Something that changed how teams thought about attacking the Eagles defensively. And then year 2 came. 2024 was the year everything came together for the Philadelphia Eagles. They signed Saquon Barkley. They ran the ball at a historic clip. They had the best offensive line in football. And on defense, with Jaylen Carter anchoring the interior, they were dominant. They were suffocating. They were the kind of defensive unit that made you feel sorry for the offense on the other side of the field. Carter made the Pro Bowl for the first time. He was earning every dollar of his rookie contract. He was establishing himself, not just as a good player, not just as a solid starter, but as one of the premier defensive tackles in the entire NFL. And the Eagles? They won the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59. February 9th, 2025. Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions. The city went absolutely insane. The parade, the celebration, the joy that poured through every street and every neighborhood in the city of brotherly love. It was something that Philly fans had been waiting years for. Again. And right in the middle of that championship defense, right at the heart of the unit that made it all possible, was Jaylen Carter. He was a champion. At 23 years old. Already a Pro Bowler. Already a Super Bowl winner. Already one of the most important players on one of the best teams in football. But the Eagles were not done. 2025 was a harder year. The Eagles came into the season with championship pressure, championship expectations, and a target on their backs the size of a freight train. Every single team in the NFL was circling that game on the schedule. Every single quarterback was motivated. Every single coach was drawing up special schemes specifically designed to attack the Eagles and knock the champs down a peg. And the Eagles had some growing pains. There were injuries. The offensive line, which had been the backbone of the championship run, was never fully healthy at the same time. Jalen Hurts got a new offensive coordinator as Kellen Moore left for New Orleans. There was an adjustment period. There were games where the offense sputtered. Games where the Eagles looked like a team that was trying to find its rhythm and just could not quite get there. And for Jaylen Carter, 2025 brought its own set of challenges. He played in only 11 games. Injuries kept him off the field for a chunk of the season. And when a player like Carter, a player whose value is tied directly to his physical dominance, misses games, you feel it. The defense felt it. The team felt it. The stats reflected it. But even in those 11 games, even while limited and not fully healthy, Carter still recorded 33 tackles, 5 for loss, 3 sacks, 12 quarterback hits, and 7 passes defensed. Think about that. 11 games. Not fully healthy. And those are his numbers. People started to wonder, what would a fully healthy Jaylen Carter look like over a full season? What would it look like when everything lined up? When the Eagles had Carter for all 17 games, operating at full speed, with a year of experience and growth added on top of what he had already shown? The answer to that question scared a lot of people. In the best possible way. But here is where things got tense. Here is where the drama started building behind the scenes. Because heading into the 2026 offseason, Jaylen Carter was entering a very interesting contract situation. He still had 2 years left on his rookie deal. His 5th-year option had been picked up. So technically, the Eagles controlled him for 2026 and 2027. They did not have to give him a new deal right now. But anyone who understood the NFL contract market knew that this conversation was coming. Sooner or later, Jaylen Carter was going to get paid. The only question was when. And who was going to blink first? And the media? Oh, the media was having a field day. There were reports. There were rumors. There were whispers about trade interest from other teams. There was speculation about whether Carter might hold in, which, for people who do not follow the NFL closely, basically means a player shows up to camp but is not fully engaged, going through the motions, making it clear they want a new deal before they go all out. Eagles fans were nervous. Because they had seen this play out before in the NFL. They had seen talented players and organizations reach a stalemate. They had seen franchise cornerstones walk out the door because both sides could not agree on the right number. And the right number for Jaylen Carter was going to be a very large number. Because the defensive tackle market had just been reset. The Tennessee Titans had extended Jeffrey Simmons on a deal that paid him over $35 million per year. $35 million. And Simmons is a great player. But is Simmons Jaylen Carter? Eagles fans had a clear opinion on that question. A very, very clear opinion. They wanted Carter locked up. They wanted this done. They wanted to walk into the 2026 season knowing that their best defensive player was going to be in Philadelphia not just this year, not just next year, but for the long haul. They begged. They pleaded. They posted on social media. They called into radio shows. They filled comment sections and podcasts and fan forums with one unified message. Lock him up. And then training camp arrived. Tuesday, July 28, 2026. Players reporting to the Jefferson Health Training Complex in South Philadelphia for the first day of 2026 Eagles training camp. This is always an exciting time of year in Philadelphia. The summer heat is thick, the anticipation is electric, and Eagles fans start feeling that familiar tingle, that sense that something great is about to happen. That football is back. That the wait is finally over. But this particular Tuesday had an extra layer of tension to it. Because people knew the Carter situation was still unresolved. People knew that contract talks had been ongoing, but nothing had been announced. And the longer it went without an announcement, the more people started to worry. Was Carter going to hold in? Was he going to show up and just go through the motions? Was Howie Roseman going to let this drag out? Was the organization going to risk the distraction? Was there going to be drama? Was there going to be tension? Was there going to be a whole messy situation hanging over training camp before the first whistle was even blown? Eagles fans were refreshing Twitter. They were checking ESPN. They were watching the official Eagles accounts for any hint, any sign, any indication of what was happening. And then, right as players were reporting to camp, the announcement came down. And when it hit, Eagles Nation absolutely exploded. 4 years. $152 million. Up to $160 million. $106 million guaranteed. An average annual value of $38 million per year. The highest paid defensive tackle in the history of the National Football League. Jaylen Carter. Locked up. Through 2031. An Eagle for life. Let that sink in for a moment. I want you to really sit with that. Because this is not just a big contract. This is a statement. This is the Philadelphia Eagles saying, in the loudest, clearest, most financially definitive way possible, Jaylen Carter is the cornerstone of this defense. He is the centerpiece of what we are building. And we are not letting him go anywhere. The deal makes Carter $38 million a year. To put that in perspective, that is almost $3 million more per year than Jeffrey Simmons, who had just reset the DT market weeks before. Carter leapfrogged over every single defensive tackle in the history of the game in terms of average annual salary. And the reaction was immediate. The reaction was overwhelming. NFL analysts were saying this was the right move. Eagles fans were losing their minds. Social media was on fire. Former players were celebrating. The Philadelphia media was buzzing. Sports radio was absolutely crackling with energy. Because this was not just a contract signing. This was a moment. A moment where the Eagles made it crystal clear, we are not rebuilding. We are not taking a step back. We are not cautious. We are not timid. We are going for it. Now I want to talk about what this actually means. Because it is easy to get excited about a big number. It is easy to celebrate when your favorite team signs a player to a record contract. But let me break down the chessboard here. Let me explain exactly why this deal is so important. And why Eagles fans have every reason in the world to feel absolutely electric about the 2026 season. First, let's talk about what Jaylen Carter actually does on a football field. We talked about his athleticism. We talked about his power. We talked about how hard he is to block with one man. But let me get a little more specific, because the real impact of Jaylen Carter goes way beyond just his individual stats. When you put Jaylen Carter in the middle of your defensive line, you change the entire calculus for the offense trying to attack you. Think about it this way. Imagine you are an offensive coordinator. You are putting together a game plan for the week. You have your run game package and your pass game package. And when you are drawing up your run plays, you have to account for every defender, where they line up, what gaps they attack, what their tendencies are. Now imagine that one of those defenders, the one sitting right in the middle of your offensive line, is Jaylen Carter. What does that do to your run game? It basically means you cannot run at him. You cannot run at his gaps. You have to either go to the very edges of the formation, or you have to assign 2 blockers to Carter just to try and keep him from blowing up the play. And here is the beautiful, beautiful thing about what that does for the rest of the Eagles' defense. When you double-team Carter, when you pull one of your guards or your center to help deal with him, that means somewhere else on the field, an Eagles defender is now lined up against a single blocker. Maybe it is Zach Bond, the Pro Bowl linebacker, getting a clean run at a gap. Maybe it is one of the edge rushers getting a one-on-one matchup. Maybe it is Cooper DeJean or Quinyon Mitchell making a tackle in space because the run never got to the second level. Carter creates opportunities for everyone around him. He makes the entire defense better just by being on the field and demanding attention. He is what football people call a multiplier, a player whose impact goes far beyond his individual statistics because of what he forces opposing offenses to do. And then you add Jordan Davis alongside him. This is where things get almost unfair for opposing offenses. Jordan Davis, 6'6", 336 pounds. And earlier this offseason, before the Carter deal, the Eagles locked him up too. 3 years, $78 million for Davis. So now picture this defensive line. On one side, you have Jaylen Carter, arguably the most athletic and disruptive interior lineman in the NFL. A pass rusher and a run stopper who can make plays from anywhere. On the other side, you have Jordan Davis, an absolute behemoth who takes up space, controls the point of attack, and makes life miserable for anyone trying to run at him. And then you add Moro Ojomo, who, by the way, is another young and developing interior lineman with real upside. The Eagles have 3 guys in the middle. 3 young, talented, physical interior linemen who all have the ability to affect a game. NFL analysts were already calling this trio one of the best young interior defensive line groups in football. Now with Carter locked up alongside Davis, now with both of those players committed long-term, this could be the most dominant interior defensive line in the league for the next several years. The kind of group that changes games. The kind of group that gives opposing offensive coordinators nightmares on Sunday morning before kickoff. The kind of group that makes defenses elite, not just good, not just solid, but genuinely, authentically, earth-shatteringly elite. And now let's talk about the rest of this Eagles defense. Because it is not just Carter and Davis. You have Vic Fangio running the defense. If you are a football fan, you already know the name. If you are newer to the sport, here is what you need to understand. Vic Fangio is one of the greatest defensive minds in the history of professional football. He has been designing and calling defenses at the highest level for decades. He has produced incredible defenses everywhere he has gone. He understands how to use the personnel he has. He understands how to disguise coverages, confuse quarterbacks, and manufacture pressure without sending the kitchen sink every single play. Fangio was the reason the Eagles' defense was so dominant during the Super Bowl run. His fingerprints were on everything. The confusion he created for opposing quarterbacks. The way he used Jaylen Carter, Cooper DeJean, and the rest of his unit to create mismatches. The complexity of his schemes, paired with the talent of his players, made the Eagles one of the hardest teams in football to score on. And now going into 2026, he has even more to work with. At cornerback, you have Quinyon Mitchell. Let me tell you about Quinyon Mitchell, because you need to know this name if you do not already. He just earned first-team All-Pro honors last season. He is arguably, and many analysts would not even use the word arguably, the best cornerback on the Philadelphia Eagles roster. The best player on the team. The most dominant individual performer they have. Think about what that says. Think about the fact that on a team that just extended the highest-paid defensive tackle in NFL history, on a team with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Zach Bond and everything else, the best player on the roster might be a cornerback named Quinyon Mitchell. That is how good this defense is. That is how stacked this unit is. That is the depth of talent that Vic Fangio gets to work with every single week. And alongside Mitchell, you have Cooper DeJean. Another young, talented, versatile defensive back who can play corner, who can play safety, who can do a little bit of everything for Fangio's defense. The kind of player that every defensive coordinator wants, someone who gives you options, gives you flexibility, and can be used in multiple ways to confuse opposing quarterbacks. You have Zach Bond at linebacker, who just made the NFL Top 100 list, by the way, recognizing him as one of the 100 best players in the entire league. Bond is a Swiss Army knife at the second level of the defense. He can rush the passer. He can cover in space. He can play the run. He is fast, instinctive, and has become one of the most important players on this defense. And at edge rusher, the position where the Eagles needed the most help heading into 2026, they went out and got Jonathan Greenard, a legitimate pass rusher. A guy who can get to the quarterback and make life difficult on the outside. Now, Greenard did have some injury news right at the start of training camp. He was placed on the PUP list to begin camp, which is obviously a little concerning. But the Eagles knew what they were getting. They knew the risk and they took it anyway, because even when healthy and available, Greenard gives this pass rush a dimension it had been lacking. And then you have the internal competition for the other edge spot, Jalen Hunt versus Nolan Smith Jr., both young, both with real upside. Hunt had a breakout 2025 season, leading the Eagles with 6.5 sacks. Smith has the explosiveness and the talent that the Eagles have believed in since they drafted him. He was a Super Bowl hero before the injury slowed him down, and this is the year people expect him to come back fully healthy and fully himself. This defense, fully assembled, fully healthy, has the potential to be something special. The kind of defense that carries a team to a championship. The kind of defense that makes life miserable for every single quarterback in the National Football League. And the Jaylen Carter extension is the foundation. It is the bedrock on which the whole thing is built. Now, before we talk about the 2026 season itself, before we look at what the Eagles are trying to accomplish this year, I want to come back to Jaylen Carter the person for a moment. Because this story is bigger than football. You think about where this young man came from. You think about the cloud that hung over his draft. You think about the concerns people had, the questions people asked, the doubts that were raised about who he was and what kind of person he was. And then you look at what happened. He came to Philadelphia. He worked. He showed up every day and competed. He earned the trust of his teammates, his coaches, his organization. He won a Super Bowl. He made the Pro Bowl. He carried himself with professionalism in the locker room and with passion on the football field. And now, at 25 years old, he is the highest-paid defensive tackle in the history of the National Football League. The Eagles believed in him. They bet on him when the rest of the league was uncertain. They gave him a chance when questions were swirling. And he repaid that trust in the most powerful way imaginable, by being everything they hoped he would be and then some. That is a redemption story. That is a story about second chances and what you do with them. That is a story about a young man who could have let the weight of everything crush him, who could have folded under the pressure, under the scrutiny, under the spotlight, and instead chose to grow. He chose to compete. He chose to be great. He chose to be an Eagle. And now he is going to be an Eagle for a very, very long time. Let me take you to the moment the deal was announced. Let me put you in the shoes of an Eagles fan. It is Tuesday morning. Training camp is beginning. You wake up, you grab your coffee or your tea or whatever gets your morning started, and you open your phone. You are scrolling through the Eagles news, getting caught up on who is at camp, what the storylines are going to be this year. And then it hits your feed. Breaking, Eagles and Jaylen Carter agree to 4-year, $152 million extension. You read it once. You blink. You read it again. $152 million. $106 million guaranteed. $38 million per year. Highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history. And then the feeling comes. That specific, electric, Philadelphia in the summer feeling that every Eagles fan knows. That rush of excitement and relief and joy all mixed together. The feeling of, yes, finally, they did it. They actually did it. Your phone starts buzzing. Your group chats are going crazy. Your buddy who goes to every Eagles game is already sending you fire emojis. Your cousin who has been nervously watching this contract situation for months is screaming in the family group chat. People are calling into sports radio. The hosts are losing their minds. The analysts are scrambling to pull up the numbers and compare them to the rest of the league. Every Eagles fan account on social media is posting. The hashtags are trending. The city is buzzing. And right in the middle of all of it, right at that training complex in South Philadelphia, Jaylen Carter is putting on his helmet and getting ready to do what he always does. Get to work. Because here is the thing about Jaylen Carter that I love the most. He did not need this contract to motivate him. He did not need a big paycheck to make him play hard. This is a guy who has competed at the absolute highest level from the moment he stepped onto an NFL field. But there is something powerful about knowing. Something powerful about waking up every day and knowing that your team has committed to you. That your organization believes in you. That you are not just passing through, you are part of something. You are building something. You are going to be here for the long haul. And for a defense trying to chase another championship, that kind of security matters. That kind of commitment sends a message to every player in that locker room. It says, we are building something special here. We are investing in greatness. We believe in this unit, this defense, this group of guys. And we are going to back that belief up with action. Howie Roseman has built his reputation on exactly this. On locking up the players who deserve to be locked up. On making the Eagles a place where great players want to stay, want to commit, want to put down roots and fight for championships. He did it with Jalen Hurts. With Devonta Smith. With Landon Dickerson. With Cam Jurgens. With Lane Johnson. With player after player after player who became a cornerstone of this franchise. And now he has done it with Jaylen Carter. The trench dynasty in Philadelphia is locked in. And that is something that should make every single Eagles fan feel very, very good. Now let's look forward. Let's talk about what the 2026 Eagles look like. Let's talk about what this team is capable of. On the defensive side, we have already established the case. Interior defensive line that could be the best in football. Cornerbacks that are as good as any pair in the league. A linebacker in Zach Bond who is becoming a star. Edge rushers who, when healthy, can create problems for any offensive line in the NFL. But what about the offense? Because this is where the biggest questions live heading into 2026. The Eagles lost A.J. Brown. Let me just say that out loud. A.J. Brown, one of the most dominant wide receivers in the entire NFL, a guy who was a monster in the Super Bowl run, was traded to the New England Patriots this offseason. And that is a big loss. A very big loss. A.J. Brown was not just a great player. He was a presence. A matchup nightmare that defensive coordinators had to account for every single play. A big, physical, explosive receiver who could take over a game. Without Brown, the Eagles have Devonta Smith as their clear number one receiver. And look, Devonta Smith is a great player. He is fast. He is shifty. He is precise in his routes. He is excellent after the catch. He is not the same type of receiver as A.J. Brown. He does not have that same massive physical frame, but he is absolutely a legitimate number one receiver who can make plays at a high level. The Eagles also brought in Dontavian Wicks to help fill some of the void. And early reports from training camp? Very encouraging. On just the first real day of camp practice, Wicks made what was described as the play of the day. He caught the eye of Jalen Hurts. He made people feel good about his potential role in this offense going forward. And there is the young rookie, Mekhi Lemon, who came in through the draft and has people buzzing. Some analysts are already saying he has a chance to do the unthinkable as a rookie and contribute in a real, meaningful way to this offense. That would be a major storyline to follow as camp rolls on. But the biggest storyline on the offensive side of the ball, the one that is going to define the 2026 Eagles season, is Jalen Hurts. Let us talk about Jalen Hurts for a moment. Because this quarterback story is one of the most fascinating in all of professional football. When Hurts came to Philadelphia in 2020, there were serious questions. He was a second-round pick. He was seen as a project. A developmental player. Someone who might become a competent backup or maybe, just maybe, develop into a starter somewhere down the line. And then, step by step, year by year, Jalen Hurts silenced every single doubt. He became the starter. He became an MVP candidate. He became a Super Bowl MVP. He took the Philadelphia Eagles to the mountaintop and delivered a championship. But 2025 was a tougher year for Hurts. The offense did not function at the same level. There were moments where the passing game looked inconsistent. There were questions about the offensive coordinator situation, and heading into 2026, the Eagles have made yet another change, bringing in Sean Mannion as the new offensive coordinator. This will be Hurts' 7th play caller since being drafted. 7. That is an extraordinary number. For any quarterback, that level of turnover in the coaching staff, in the person responsible for designing your offense and calling your plays, is incredibly difficult. It requires constant relearning, constant adjustment, constant rebuilding of trust and communication. And yet Hurts has done it every single time. He has adapted. He has grown. He has found ways to perform within different systems, under different coordinators, with different approaches. Early training camp reports are encouraging. Hurts was described as making strong decisions, showing good timing, and looking sharp in the early practices. The connection with his receivers appears to be developing. And with a new blocking scheme being put in place by new offensive line coach Chris Cooper, the offensive line that returns all 5 starters from last season, there is genuine reason for optimism. Because here is the thing. The Eagles' offensive line is still one of the best in football. Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, these 5 guys all know each other. They have played together. They have chemistry. They just need to stay healthy, and if they do, this offensive line can do for Hurts and the run game in 2026 what it did during the Super Bowl run. And the run game, anchored by Saquon Barkley, who signed his historic extension last year, is still one of the most dangerous weapons in football. Barkley is coming off one of the most historic single-season performances by a running back in NFL history. He is motivated. He is healthy. He is ready. And with a healthy offensive line in front of him, the Eagles' ground game could be devastating again. The schedule is not going to be easy. The Eagles face 8 playoff teams from last year. They open at Lincoln Financial Field on September 13th against the Washington Commanders. They have an international game on the schedule, their 3rd time playing in an international regular season game. And they are playing in Dallas for the holidays again, first time since 2014. But Philadelphia does not feel afraid of any of that. Because when you have the defensive line they have, the cornerbacks they have, the offensive line they have, and the quarterback they have, you do not need an easy schedule. You just need the opportunity to go compete. And the Eagles? They have been competing at the highest level for years now. They know what championship football looks like. They know what it takes. They have the veterans who have been there and done it. And they have the young core, Carter, Mitchell, DeJean, Bond, Lemon, Wicks, that is just beginning to hit its stride. This is not a team in the twilight of a window. This is a team that is building a dynasty. Let me take you to that Jefferson Health Training Complex one more time. Wednesday morning. First practice of 2026 Eagles training camp. The sun is up early in South Philly. The air is thick and warm. The field is pristine, green and sharp and perfectly lined. The stands around the practice facility are filled with Eagles fans who got up early, made the drive, waited in line, because this is Philadelphia and Eagles fans are built differently. Jaylen Carter walks onto the field. He is freshly signed. The ink is barely dry on a 4-year, $152 million contract. He is officially the highest-paid defensive tackle in NFL history. And he could be forgiven for walking onto that field with a little extra pep in his step. A little extra swag. A little extra, I just got paid, energy. But here is the thing about Jaylen Carter. That is not who he is. He walks onto the field and he goes to work. He lines up. He fires off the snap. He attacks the blocker in front of him with the same ferocity, the same power, the same relentless motor that he brings every single day. And the fans, the Eagles fans who woke up early and drove in and got their spots in the stands, they see it. They feel it. They know what they are watching. They are watching a champion. A Philadelphia Eagle. A man who just committed his prime years to this city, to this team, to this organization. A man who looked at everything he could have gotten on the open market, looked at all the options that might have been available to him down the line, and chose Philadelphia. Because this is his home now. These are his people. This is where he wants to win. And when Carter makes his first big play of practice, when he shoots a gap and gets to the quarterback, or when he drives a blocker 3 yards into the backfield, or when he simply lines up in his stance and makes the entire offensive line around him nervous just by existing, the fans in those stands. They are going to lose their minds. Because they have been waiting for this. They have been asking for this. They have been demanding this. And the Eagles finally gave it to them. I want to zoom out for a second, because I think it is important to understand what this contract means in the context of where this franchise has been and where it is trying to go. The Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl in 2018 with Nick Foles. That was historic. That was one of the most improbable and beautiful championship runs in NFL history. But it was built on a team that was aging at its core. After that championship, there was a natural turnover. There was a transition period. There was a rebuilding of the roster, a reimagining of what the Eagles were going to be. And the result of that reimagining, the result of years of drafting, developing, and building, was the team that won Super Bowl 59 in 2025. A team built in the trenches. Built around elite offensive and defensive linemen. Built around a quarterback who earned his place as one of the best in the game. Built around young, hungry, talented players who grew up through the system and became champions together. Jaylen Carter is the crown jewel of that rebuilt defense. He is the player who, more than anyone else, represents what the new Eagles can be. He was the highest ceiling player in his draft class. He was the most physically gifted interior defender to come through the Eagles organization in a generation. And locking him up through 2031, locking him in with Jordan Davis, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Zach Bond, and the rest of this young core, sends a message that is impossible to misread. The Eagles are not done. They are not satisfied with one ring. They are not going to rest on what they accomplished in 2025. They are going to compete. They are going to push. They are going to chase another championship, and they have the talent, the coaching staff, the organizational structure, and now the long-term commitment to the right players to make it happen. Let me tell you something about Philadelphia fans. Philadelphia fans are a different breed. They are loud. They are passionate. They are fiercely loyal. They will ride with their team through the bad times, the ugly times, the heartbreaking times, because they know that loyalty is what this city is built on. But Philadelphia fans also demand. They demand effort. They demand accountability. They demand that the organization take the city as seriously as the fans take the team. They demand that the Eagles make the hard decisions, spend the money, do what it takes to compete. And when the Eagles do that, when the front office makes the bold move, swings for the fences, commits to greatness, those fans respond with a level of energy and passion and support that is unlike anything else in professional sports. The Jaylen Carter extension is exactly that kind of move. It is the kind of move that makes Philadelphia feel seen. The kind of move that makes fans say, they get it. They understand. They are serious. They are not playing games. And when Carter runs onto that field at Lincoln Financial Field on September 13th for the first regular season game of 2026, when the Eagles take the field against the Commanders with 70,000 people in that stadium losing their collective minds, the energy is going to be electric. Because the Eagles finally did what the fans were begging for. They locked up Jaylen Carter. And here is one more thing I want you to think about. Jaylen Carter is 25 years old. 25. He is just entering the absolute prime of his career. He has not even reached the ceiling of what he is capable of yet. Think about what he has done. 2 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl ring, record-breaking plays, dominant performances, and he has done all of that before the age of 26. The best years of Jaylen Carter's career are still ahead of him. The most dominant version of Jaylen Carter has not even shown up yet. By the time this contract is done, by the time 2031 rolls around, people are going to look back at this signing and say that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles got an absolute bargain. Because you do not find players like Jaylen Carter. You do not draft them very often. You do not develop them at the rate the Eagles have developed him. And once you have a player like that, once you know what you have, you do not let him walk. You sign him. You commit to him. You build your defense around him. And you go win some more championships. So where does that leave us today? Training camp is underway. The best interior defensive line in football is assembled and preparing for 2026. A hungry, motivated, veteran offensive unit is adjusting to a new coordinator and finding its rhythm. A young receiving core is fighting for playing time and trying to prove it can fill the shoes left by A.J. Brown's departure. A franchise quarterback is throwing well and building chemistry with his new weapons. And the best defensive tackle in football, the highest paid at his position in NFL history, is lining up in his stance every morning and reminding everyone in that building exactly why this contract was the right call. The Philadelphia Eagles are built to compete. They are built to win. They are built, from the ground up, from the trenches out, to be a force in the NFC for years to come. And it all starts with this. It all starts with a phone call that went out this offseason, the negotiations that happened behind closed doors, the handshakes and the signatures, and the moment that Jaylen Carter and the Philadelphia Eagles agreed, officially, financially, historically, to do this together. 4 years. $152 million. The highest paid defensive tackle in history. Locked up. Through 2031. The thing Eagles fans were begging for. Finally delivered. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you are a real one. You stayed through the whole story. You went through every twist and turn and moment of drama and triumph. And I appreciate that more than you know. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you locked in for the 2026 Eagles season? Do you think Jaylen Carter is worth every single dollar of that contract? And what do you think the ceiling is for this Eagles defense when Carter and Davis and Mitchell and Dejon and Bond are all clicking together at full speed? Because I want to know what you think. I want to hear from the real Eagles fans. The ones who have been following this story from the beginning. The ones who know what it took to get here. Drop it in the comments. Let me know. And if you want to stay up to date on everything happening in Philadelphia, every training camp update, every breakout performance, every storyline worth following, make sure you are subscribed. Hit that notification bell so you do not miss a single thing. Because this 2026 Eagles season, it is going to be something special. Fly, Eagles, fly.